Hello, I'm Kirk Farrell, and this is the Cameraman's Code of Honor. Authority, control, and power are three things that are very prevalent in society today, and those are three things that are very desirable to the population. But it's what we do with that power that's extremely interesting. For those who are making documentary, capturing the footage is only one step in the long journey towards making the full documentary. But the real magic happens in the editing process, and that's where the power truly personifies. I personally have experience in making film, and I'm familiar with both sides of the camera, being behind the camera and in front of it, and I'm very familiar with the interview process. I'm currently on a team here in Dallas that is starting work on making a documentary targeting the inequality of food in Dallas. And the style that we are doing our documentary in is a journalistic approach, and that means that we are putting a lot of faith in certain factors that are uncontrollable, but there are some factors that are controllable, such as the editing process, which brings me to the whole topic of ethics in editing. Now, in making our documentary, our team will take an ethical approach towards what we produce and how we portray those that we interview. My first point in the speech will be about what is associated with the editing process, and then I'll explain the ethics involved. First, allow me to explain the editing procedure. Now, after you get all your recording done, you then take that footage and edit it to fit it into a storyboard that you've previously created. Now, an ideal interview will have someone who addresses issues that you've already touched on in the documentary. They will further the story along throughout their interview, and they will intrigue the audience and keep their interest in what they're saying. What you don't want is something that detracts from your overall message or slows down the flow of the documentary. William Wordsworth in 1800 published Lyrical Ballads, which he wrote about the selection of language, which is to throw over a certain coloring of imagination, whereby ordinary things should be presented to the mind in an unusual way, and to make these incidents and situations interesting. This is very intriguing, and this is an example of the power that a poet has to create stories that fits the needs of what their audience wants. When making a nonfiction documentary, you don't have that ability. You have to work with what you have, and sometimes you're faced with an interview that is not exactly riveting. When you are faced with a less than satisfying interview, you have to be careful to not edit too much, but also not to edit too little. To quote Wordsworth again in his poem, The Mystery of Words, which is in the larger collection, The Prelude, which was officially published in 1850, visionary power attends upon the motions of the winds, embodied in the mystery of words. There darkness makes abode, and all the hosts of shadowy things do work their changes there. Now this describes the power in words and shows how much change they have. Now yes, it may at first seem better to alter the interview for the editor's sake, but going off of what Wordsworth said, it is much more powerful to be honest and genuine. Speaking of honesty, I would now like to focus on the ethical relevance of the editing procedure. A libertarian viewpoint might say that the editor has the right to shape the documentary however they would like, but they would be wrong. In Michael J. Sandel's book, Justice, What's the Right Thing to Do, published in 2009, he writes, "Each of us has a fundamental right to liberty, the right to do whatever we want with the things we own, provided we respect other people's rights to do the same." Now yes, at first this may seem to support the editor's viewpoint and that they have the full control to change the interview however they'd like, but in fact it's a direct violation of the person being interviewed and their rights and goes against Sandel's definition. In the journal article, An Honor System for Historians, published in 2004 by Emma J. Lepsansky, she says, "What is clear is that some historians, like others in our society, have dishonored their profession, brought negative publicity to their community, and increased likelihood that people will love history but distrust historians." Now what's said here about historians can be the same for editors. The more they abuse the interview and change it for their own sake, the more they will become distrusted. However, the more honest they are, the more the audience will love what they have to say, and love their documentary, and love those who created it. It is in this understanding of the ethics that I hope all who deal with documentation, myself included, know how important honor is and that they shouldn't misconstrue what the interviewee is saying. Going forward, In making this documentary, I hope my team and I will take the ethical approach in what we produce and how we portray it, taking into account, 1, all that editing and filmmaking involves, and 2, understanding the ethics behind it. In conclusion, like I mentioned earlier, authority, control, and power are all very desirable things, but I believe beauty supersedes it all. John Keats in 1819 wrote in an ode to a Grecian urn, "Beauty is truth, truth is beauty." Now those who believe this will hopefully honor the responsibility to portray the beautiful truth in the editing process.